May 19th, 1999. That's 20 years ago today. Weird to think that 20 years ago today, I was 17 years old, and right around this time, on my way to seeing The Phantom Menace for the second time in 24 hours. But I'm not talking about the second time I saw the movie where the plot holes started to come through and other things started to happen, and I didn't even really notice that on the third or fourth time. Wasn't until later upon home video watching the movie did I ever start to look at things from a less than stellar perspective. But my night of seeing The Phantom Menace is still one that I bring up occasionally in conversation because it's a very interesting night. It's kind of an odd defining night of my life in a couple of different ways. Maybe not defining, interesting nonetheless. So this is my Star Wars The Phantom Menace story, and it starts actually like a couple weeks before. Now, I wasn't able to wait in line with my friend in order to get midnight tickets, so I gave him money because I went to go see Eminem perform in downtown Portland. Yeah, Eminem was playing back in the day. Went and saw him. But then I drove by after the fact and gave my friend the money and said, hey man, can you pick me up a 12:01 ticket? Now, back in the 1990s, 12:01 was the default midnight show. It wasn't this midnight stuff. It was 12:01, officially into the next day. So you had to stay up that late. So he says, okay, fine, I'll buy you the ticket. The next day we're at school because we're all seniors in high school. He comes over to me and he says, hey man, I wasn't able to get you a 12:01. I got you a 12:03 because they were sold out. Which was a little bit weird to me because I'm like, well, you got 12:01 and I'm pretty sure everyone else got 12:01. So why did I get 12:03? And he didn't want to tell me at that moment in time why. And there was a reason. There was some beef that was happening. Some beef that was happening between his friend who was there with him and that dude's sister and another mutual friend of ours. Now, the best way to summarize that was his sister, who was a sophomore, used to date a senior who dumped her right before the prom. A mutual friend of ours who didn't have a date to prom and was a bit more of a, not really a ladies' man. As we learned later on, it was because he doesn't like the ladies, but at the time he wasn't too sure about that yet. So he had offered to take her to prom, and he paid for everything. He paid for everything. The tickets, the limo, the dinner, everything he paid for. And she got there and got back together with her ex-boyfriend. Now, I've known this dude since 4th grade. We'd been buds for 8 years at that point. I'm a loyal person. I expressed my dismay at the treating of my friend to this chick's brother. As I found out, in order to get back at me for expressing myself in a vocalized manner, not the nicest, I will be fair, but this was 20 years ago, and my users, it doesn't matter. It's 20 years ago. So he took my money from my other friend and bought me a 12:03 ticket to screw with me. Now, I didn't know that until I got to the theater at 6 p.m. on that night. 6 p.m. on the 18th to wait the 6 hours in order to see this movie. Now, while waiting for this movie, I was talking with my friend who bought me the ticket as he actually was playing an arcade game with that dude's sister who was there, who wasn't happy and wasn't happy to see me at all. And her and I start bantering, kind of say a few choice words to her. Again, defending my friend's honor. And as I start to walk away, and this is 100% true, I get out the door. I'm going to head to Subway to get dinner because I used to work at that Subway that was right next to it. And she jumps on my back and she punches me like 5 times in the back of the head. Like, bap, 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 bap. None of it hurt. It was like a spider monkey. She jumps on my back and she punches me a couple times and I shove her off. I laugh and I leave. Because, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to hit a 15-year-old girl in front of a group. No, I'm not. She just attacked me. She left, and that was that. And no one cared, by the way. No one cared until a little bit later. So Unbeknownst to the people who bought me the ticket, the guy who bought me the ticket, I used to work at that theater the summer before. And a lot of the doormen who worked there when I was there were still working there. In fact, two of them who used to, I know for a fact, go off and smoke weed and get drunk on their breaks, were checking the tickets for the 1201 show. Now, what you have to understand about the 1201 show, and I should have brought this up before, is the 1201 show is the big THX auditorium. And if you know anything about Lucasfilm from back in the 90s, THX was it. It was the jam. It was what you wanted to see. It was the IMAX of its time. 600-person auditorium. And I was being relegated to 1203, a small 125-seat theater without the THX sound. I wasn't having none of that. So, as I was over talking to my former employees, or not employees, coworkers, they happened to say, "Hey man, we heard you got your ass beat by some chick out in the parking lot." And I'm like, "It wasn't like that. She hit me a couple times and that was that." And they start laughing at me. But I used that moment of their distraction to get what I wanted, which was I just walked into the THX auditorium. They didn't check my ticket. They knew me. They knew who I was. They knew I was there to see Star Wars, but they never questioned anything about it. So I walk in, and this was a sold out theater. And if someone didn't get a seat at this point, 20 years later, I still don't feel bad. But I walked in, I found a good seat in the middle of the row in between two groups of people, and I sat down. And then we still had about 45 minutes to wait before the movie started. And I wasn't too sure where in this 600-person auditorium my friend was with this dude and his sister. Because if they know I didn't have a ticket for it. So I know that if they saw me, then it would be the jig is up. They would have me thrown out. 100% knew this. They're that kind of vindictive people, especially after the physical assault I had experienced like 3 hours earlier. That still, by the way, wasn't even remotely painful. It was just funny. I was still chuckling about it. So I sat there and I read my book and just kind of like slunk down in my seat a little bit so they couldn't see me. And finally, the lights go down. The previews begin. We see a teaser for Titan AE, which opens a year down the road. Looks great. Don Bluth. And as the lights go dark and the Lucasfilm logo blasts on the screen, I hear one dude in the back yell out, and I'll never forget this. Some dude in the audience of 600 people just belted out of the top of his lungs, "George Lucas is God." And the entire theater erupted because we did not know what we were in for. We did not know what we were going to be experiencing. To us, it was like this was coming home. This was, in my generation, the kids who were born in the 80s. I was born in 82, so my mom took me to go see Return of the Jedi in 83, but I was 1. I don't remember none of that. This was my definitive Star Wars moment. And I watched the movie. And it was, at the time, I loved it. Back in 1999, my mom picked me up about 2:30 in the morning, somewhere in there. And she was like, "Are you going to school tomorrow?" And I said, "No." And this is also true because somebody had basically issued a threat against a school with the initials THS, because I lived in Tigard, Oregon. And so Tigard High School, someone had written a blog post back in the early days of the web, saying that the THS was going to get shot up. Keep in mind, we're also a month post-Columbine at this point, right? And so a lot of kids decided to take the 19th of May, 1999 off of school for their own safety. The teachers all knew Star Wars had just come out. They knew that the student body would predominantly be going to watch Star Wars. And so the students who actually went to school that day all got better grades. They all got a lot of bonus points for showing up. That just goes to show you the world of the 90s versus the world of now in regards to those kind of threats. In the world of now, if there's a tweet that's a hint of a threat, a whole school district will shut down. Back in the 90s, an unnamed THS school was getting the threat of getting shot up, not even a month after, at that time, the deadliest school shooting in the United States. And the teachers offer a buttload of extra credit if you show up to class. It was worth it for me not to go. Because at the end of the day, the next afternoon, I went over to my friend who had just got off school, and we went and saw the movie again in order to experience it with my best friend at the time, who couldn't go to the midnight show with me the night before. So I saw Star Wars: The Phantom Menace twice in the first 24 hours, 4 times in theaters overall, and a lot of times on home video. Despite the flaws of the film, of which there are many, there are some absolute truths, and those truths are always going to be Darth Maul, no matter what, is still a badass. The pod race scene still kicks ass. John Williams brought his A game with the score, so much so that, Duel of the Fates is, I think, the quintessential Star Wars song at ever. I'm going to put it above even the general title music as well as the Imperial March. It's just it's like, those are iconic, but it's not Duel of the Fates. And it really was like something that kind of like changed cinema. It was one of the first films that was shot on both 35 mil and digital. Lucas was really bringing it, even though he needed to rein in the script a little bit because the Trade Federation stuff didn't make a lot of sense, and it really wasn't the most intriguing and sexy of plots. But at the same time, 20 years later, I can still look back on The Phantom Menace and absolutely positively still laugh at that experience. Never mind the physical assault I had happen to me. And I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny at the end of the day. Because here's the thing. They tried screwing me over, and I used the situation into my own personal benefit. Win for me. But yeah, that's my true story about when I saw The Phantom Menace. It was a good night, and one that I still chalk it as being a good night. It's one that I'll never forget. And that is one of the reasons why, to me, Star Wars is one of the quintessential experiences in my life. Why I always will go see it, why I always will engage with it, good and bad. I'll still check it out because there's a lot that can be good and a lot that can be bad, but it still brings a lot of people together. And I still love it. Anyway, I am curious to know what your guys' remembrance of the Phantom Menace, your stories. Are they involving physical assaults from a sophomore girl who's pissed off that you weren't happy with how she treated your friend, or not? Let me know down in the comments below. Anyway, my name is Matt Charbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. If you guys haven't already, please thumbs up the video. If you enjoyed the story, if you made it this far, go ahead and type Star Wars in the chat. Thumbs up the video. Subscribe if you're new, and please check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Matt Charbo. I will talk to you guys later. Have yourself a fantastic night, and may the Force be with you.